Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass virtual program Fired Up. Today is February 6th, 2026. We're in the new year, and we have an exciting new artist that we're bringing you, Jim Scheller. He's based in Illinois and actually has a different career path earlier on as an engineer and working in a very different world than art. But as you'll see from his artwork, that he brings that really close attention to detail and that methodical approach to his work, while also learning really a balance to let that creativity beautifully shine through. I believe he got his start early on at Bullseye Glass, as many kiln artists do, and he's going to take us now not only through his personal journey, but show us some really insightful process photos and information about how his work is created, in addition to showing us where he is now with his most recent series. So Jim, please take it away. And for everyone here that is new, I'm going to put some information in the chat about AACG. We actually have these programs every Friday. Only the first Friday is open to the public. The other Fridays are for AACG members only. So if you are interested in joining, you can click that link and learn more. All right, thanks, Jim. Go ahead.
Greetings and welcome from the flatlands of Southern Illinois. This is the view from my place, my home and studio. Right beside that, on the other side of that windmill, just on the other side of those trees, is old Route 66. And I'm 50 miles north of St. Louis, so the southern part of the state. This is the way it looks in the summer, but this is the way it looked yesterday. So a little cool, but still, we really like it here. It's a lot different than the Oregon we moved away from. Anyway, so the childhood home is from St. Louis. You just take Route 66 north to the first stoplight, and then you turn right. That's the way I would tell people who were coming from St. Louis to find me. And you can easily miss the place. The thing that we're probably the most famous for is Mother Jones, who was a union activist who said she wanted to be buried with her minor boys in Mount Olive. So after growing up there, I went to school at the University of Missouri at Rolla, where I learned how to use computers a lot. I mean, that's what I study. I have a master's in mechanical engineering with an emphasis on structural mechanics. And this was in the days when the computer was tape drives and punch cards. After leaving school, I worked in a variety of jobs as a practicing engineer. Started at Westinghouse Advanced Reactors, building a nuclear power plant. Then moved back to the St. Louis area and started doing programs for structural analysis of all sorts of different things, eventually leading me to Houston, where I started a computer design facility at a design construct firm down there, and then moving back to St. Louis to work for the aircraft company. I always said when I was growing up in the 70s, I would never work for a defense contractor, but I did. But the good part about that job was working with Doug Engelbart. I started a consultancy at McAir that was about engineering office automation. So I got to meet the inventor of the mouse, got to work with the inventor of the mouse at his place in Stanford, and that was really fulfilling. It really got me interested in how knowledge workers can collaborate using technology. And I had this internal consultancy at McAir, and Nike found me. So in 1990, I switched from fighter jets to sneakers. Big change. And I worked at Nike for some time, doing technology that wasn't like your standard billing and processing and claims and that. It was about how designers, developers, marketing people, and the factories in Asia would collaborate using technology. We'd follow the sun with technology, working on different projects. I left Nike to start my own consultancy, where I worked with Fila, K-Swiss, Adidas, to name a few, and then spent 10 years, the last 10 years before I stopped working with Adidas, spent 3 years in Germany with them, and then back in Portland, where their North America headquarters is at. Well, I was really excited about moving to Oregon because my two boys, we were very much into the outdoors. So the first thing that I wanted to do was, it was just so attractive, the Pacific Northwest. So trained, worked hard to climb Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, and the Sisters, and just hiking the gorge. I really missed the place. Okay, so this, after I started, after I retired, I guess you could say, um, my wife bought me a Groupon to take a class at Bullseye. And this is the first piece of glass that I made here on the right. That was a great place. It still is a great place. I learned a lot there, a lot of really fine people, and I've met some great people in my time in glass. My studio in Oregon was a barn up behind my place on the Chehalem Mountain. It was about 20 minutes back then, probably a little bit longer to commute down to get glass at Bullseye. So that was pretty cool. But this is where we spent almost 30 years. We just moved back. We just moved back to this area, to Staunton, because it's close to our home, and our son lives here. My brother was here, my sister was here, and we said we wanted to move back to be close to family. My brother immediately moved to Florida, and my sister immediately moved to Tucson. So that didn't work out so well, but it's great. Okay, so this is one of the first pieces that I started making after my little class at Bullseye, which was just Introduction to Fusing. And I used the Bullseye Studio to make this series of work. It was just learning how to use glass, how to cut glass, how to position it. But the colors really amazed me. My friends saw this and they said, "You should just make that black." So I did, and made a whole series of these. Obvious reference was to Pink Floyd. At Bullseye, I took a class on learning how to do pattern bars. And for a long time, for a couple of years, I just concentrated on pattern bars. I thought that was a lot of fun. It was, and made some interesting pieces. All this time, I'm just learning about glass. The thing that really attracted me, one of the things that really attracted me to it, was it really reminded me of the metallurgy that I took when I was in college. I mean, just the whole idea of taking a material, heating it up till it's molten, and forming it into something different was a bunch of fun. Experimented with trying to come up with some different sort of marine-y things, but this is all very formative work, just the very beginning, maybe the first year of work. In 2004, or 2014, I was very interested in Pilchuck. I had heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it. I went up to Tacoma to watch Chihuly do his Irish cylinders, and Flora Mace and Jury Kirkpatrick were there, and I was chatting with them. They were, working just down in the auditorium, and as a kiln former, I'm going like, would this be a good thing for me to do? And they said, yes, you need to go. So I did. And I took a course from Nathan Sandberg on how to do casting. And I had never done any casting at that point. But the place is just amazing. So then that fall, after the summer of 14, in that fall, I was invited to the Klein Parish kiln forming residency at Pilchuck, which was a huge deal for me. This was the piece that I made in Nathan's class. It's a train shed, an old train shed ruin down in Missouri. So I cast that. And then at the residency, made this piece. At this point, I was still doing almost all casting in 14. But while there at the residency, I met people they weren't engineers, they were artists. And they were speaking a language that I admittedly said, I really don't know some of the terms you're using, some of the things you're thinking about, but I really, really enjoyed it and just immersed myself in understanding that particular language and just studied. I decided that I was going to do some homage pieces that were related to the Distill period. So Monrain, Doesburg, Kandinsky. And these were really formational for me to really get proficient at cutting the glass, fusing the glass, um, and learning about the art of that particular period. Um, these bowls are all 16 plus inches, up to 20 inches. So the large bowls slumped into a stainless steel sink mold. I started entering competitions, shows. This was an exhibit where my pieces were accepted, and it gives you an idea of the size. I really like the way that light transmits onto the surface, and so the concentration here was in that direction. I'm trying to get very precise in cutting, and I had bought these three-step molds from Bullseye when I was in Oregon, and I tried them once to make these deep bowls that you see here, deep vessels. I had tried them in Oregon, but I was never successful. When I got here to Staunton, to Illinois, I had a studio that was a nice studio that I could really concentrate on getting the technique down for that particular deep slump process. So here you see some transition pieces from distill and simple slumping, I'll call it, to these pieces that are in the three-step molds, which I'll talk about here. Another one, show that I was with a photographer capturing light. Again, showing on the right a Mondrain homage. More of the same. Here I had Ancient Rings piece in this particular show, and this will give you an idea of the size and the scale of those. So when people ask about process, they usually expect a sequence of steps. And I'm going to go through the steps at a high level. But one of the things as I got further and further into this particular series, it wasn't about the technique as much as it was the thought and the process that went into making these. The technique used to be the driver, and now the technique is the listener. Early on, technique was the problem that I needed to solve. I had to understand how thousands of these small pieces of glass behaved, how heat affected the structure, and how to control all the variables. I got a lot of help from people that I had met in the glass community, online and in person, and at the Beacons. It was just so valuable. The Bullseye conferences, and then the time I spent at 4 residencies at Pilchuck with Steve Klein and Richard Parrish and all the artists that were there with me. Over time, the technical knowledge really settled into my hands. Then I had more time to really concentrate on what I wanted to achieve in a piece. The notebook work wasn't about drawing the piece. It was about working through the decisions, trying to figure out what I was going to do, where I was going. And then once I started assembly, things really started to move, and um, the pieces started to talk to me. It were giving me direction of how I wanted to go. But it all starts with a very, very tedious process of cutting 4,500 little chips of glass. And it's French vanilla that I use to create the canvas in these pieces upon that hold together the design elements. I even came up with a little jig so I could put my arms on these cushions as I was breaking all these pieces. So it's a time to think and to just cut. The engineering comes back into play. Each one of the pieces starts with a drafting of a polar grid. I dug out my tools from 50 plus years ago in college when I learned to draft and used that extensively. Then after all the pieces are together, that the grid is set down, a sketch of an idea is in the notebook of where I want to go, and I'll sit and work for days to assemble these pieces. They're all the base piece is 9 millimeters square, and the thickness of this blank, which I will fuse, is 9 millimeters. The lines and the way lines work, curvature, uh, just the whole idea of the French curve. It's really centuries of curves. You think back to like the 1400s when the French curve was really coming about. It's all the thought and the memories that go in the memory that is contained in the tools and is going to be contained in the glass. I mean, and the piece. The glass itself has a memory. The piece I'm making is going to have a collective memory. Uh, Here I started working with the idea of the uh, Archimedes spiral and assembling a piece based on that. Everything starts with a grid to kind of keep me to set a constraint. I'm going to build within this Mullite dam. Again, another shot of me working in my studio, um, putting all these pieces together. It's a very satisfying activity. As you're doing this, some of the pieces will just appear. I'll be building a piece, and at the end, I have to close up a ring or I have to close up a space. And this amazes me that I'll measure these with a ruler to get the closing piece. But many times the piece is always there. It's waiting for me. It's waiting to be inserted in the right location. Uh, it's a very interesting process. Here's just a little video. So once the piece is assembled, it goes into the kiln and it's full fused at 1490 degrees Fahrenheit.
Hi, Jim. We had one
Uh,
quick question from the audience. They were curious about the kiln shelves because it looks like they are not flat and they are recessed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. So let me back up. Let me try to back up. So there you see I'm using a stainless steel ring as a dam. This was earlier on before I discovered that this is much better. This is a kiln shelf. It's water jet cut by Nathan Sandberg in Portland. It's a kiln shelf that has been cut into a ring. And I found this to be much better than stainless steel because it doesn't spall. And I found it much better than vermiculite because it doesn't rub off on my arm. So these are really a great tool. Does this answer the question? I believe it does.
It does. Thank you.
Okay. And all this is on top of a kiln shelf. Okay, so this ring sits on kiln shelf, thin fire that I've drawn on, sketched on, and then this mullite ring that's been water jet cut on top of that, and then lined with fiber paper. Okay, so on the left, it hasn't been fused yet, but on the right it has been, and it's inside of the very first mold, which is the one on the left. So these are the three molds that I use uh, that come from Bullseye, and the first one is easy because it's just a slump into a spherical mold. The second two get real interesting. You can see back in the back corner. That's my very first kiln ever. Uh, it's a scut. It has no heating elements in the top, and it's perfect for these second and third slumps in this particular process. So for the whole thing, we're looking at it. I budget a week to assemble and then 4 nights to actually slump the piece, and then cold working after that. So in the second and third slumps, it's necessary to reach into the kiln and make an adjustment so that things slump, so it slumps level, so that the bottom of the piece is parallel to the lip. So I'll start the kiln so that it reaches process temperature at 8 in the morning, and then I'll babysit it for 3 hours, looking every 10 minutes until it settles down into the mold, and then looking every 20 minutes to see how it's doing. And then here's a piece showing its progression through the first molds. And again, how the light transmits through it is something I'm really attracted to. But you can see in the final slump on the right that the lip requires some cold working. So I'll grind that flat and then polish it to an optical shine. So that's all the process. uh, I hope that was interesting. So this was the first piece that I made. This is Ancient Rings 1. This was before my photography skills got better as well, with a lot of help from Bob Leatherbaugh, teaching me. He says, Jim, you need to take better photos. And so we had a couple phone calls where he helped me to understand photography a little better. And Steve Immerman's website was really a good resource for learning photography. But anyway, this is the very first piece. And when I finished it, I said, this looks like rings. They look like ancient rings. They look like tree rings. They look like coil pottery. They look like maybe a hint of basketry from Native American basketry. This first piece is very orthogonal. You can see there's all kinds of right angles. Probably one of the simpler as far as construction, but at this point I'm still learning the technique. My mind isn't free because my hands, I have to instruct my hands, what the heck are you doing? And try to learn how to put these pieces together. But it's all from 9 by 9 millimeter pieces of glass just stood on end. Some would say it's strip construction on steroids. So the first piece is very orthogonal. Then I started to branch out into different angles. Things became more difficult in terms of assembly, but now I'm getting to where I can compose different designs. I can compose different pieces. I don't think I said, but there are 93 pieces in the series so far. I've been doing it for about 3 years. And I've dedicated to this series. There was a time when I was doing this series and the others, but this is the full-time work that I do now. Again, more off the orthogonal, using the chemistry of the bullseye glasses to get some reactions. Um, again, concentrating on how light transmits through the glass from a profile view like this, but also how it throws the color shadows. And you can see the edge here. Adding that edge to the lip is enjoyable, and I think it brings it puts a finishing touch on the piece. Then I moved into some extreme curvature. So now orthogonality is gone. I'm experimenting with how the flow how I can get flow into the pieces. I'm also experimenting with ways to get different kinds of reactions, like in the Egyptian blue here, get reactions between those pieces by applying powders to a sheet of glass prior to cutting it into pieces. But I shouldn't talk about technique as much as just the idea that how can I get different shapes, different designs on the glass, and understanding that when it goes from a flat 16-inch blank, what's going to happen as things stretch and move as it goes through through the slumping process, because you can get some very exciting, for me, exciting changes. Circles become ovals, straight lines become curves. And this is something that I also investigated in an earlier series that you could see on my website called Lines, a line series before the Ancient Rings. Also incorporating the circle at the bottom that's of this vessel that lets more light come through. And then some even more curvature, more architectural sort of an architectural feel to these, using different values of the colored tints. I really like the tints that Bullseye has to give this ombre sort of effect. When I was making this piece, I didn't realize that it's strange how this happens. I didn't realize it was going to come out looking like something in Rome, like the ceiling of the building in Rome, and adding the French vanilla as details here to get these nice gray and black lines. Then we have extreme patterning and flow, and really bringing a lot of curves. This is 3 different views on this particular vessel. Went in with a sketch, thinking of what I wanted to do, and as it was developed, it started taking on a life of its own. So here you'll see that particular vessel on the left as an animated GIF. I found that taking photographs during the process really helps me to think about that particular piece, and also think about future pieces. I've got my notebook right next to this table, and while I'm building something, I'll get an idea for the next 2 or 3 and stop, have to sketch that out just to save the idea so it doesn't disappear. So as I'm laying out these curves, which are just pieces of glass slumped over stainless steel pipes of different diameters, I assemble these curves, and it starts its life with a curve put down. What sort of design do I want to attach to that curve? Do I want the curve to follow which arc? Do I want it to follow? How do I want to fill these gaps? And while constructing it, really thinking about that, the image on the right really brings that home. And thinking about how it's going to look from 2D to 3D. It's a fun mental exercise. Recently, I've been getting into this whole concept of the Archimedes spiral and how it's a spiral from above, but when viewed in profile, it really makes very interesting as a line. It's a horror, it's a line that's diagonal across the piece. Here you can see the reactions between the Ming green chemistry and the French vanilla that really puts a very interesting dark shadow around the color. More the same vessel, just different views. The light coming through the amber in the very small pieces here on the left as they make a V motion down to the bottom. We're not into concentric rings anymore like we were in Ancient Rings 1. Now we're thinking about how to make patterns even with the French vanilla. So the French vanilla and the colors now are really working together to come up with some interesting design. Here's the bottom view, so you can see how the spirals are coming there, and then how the gaps are filled. So how the French vanilla comes in with the V of the amber and changing the pattern, changing the direction of the ancient rings and the lines that the French vanilla makes. And then the details, just the way the glass behaves, fascinates me. So the details of how it comes up into the lip. And then so I just have a few more. Working with a set of color samples that I've made helps me in deciding the direction that I want to go with color. So you'll see those little blocks of samples that show the difference between 1, 2, or 3 layers of the bullseye tint, which dictates the value and the intensity of the color, helping me decide what colors to use. Placing the curves. So these are transparent white curves, but by arranging them, I've got an idea in the sketch. But once I get my hands on a physical curve and move that around, it really helps me to study how the piece is going to look. And the pops of color for the circles. Which turned into ovals. That's the finished piece. Steve Klein taught me how to use things other than glass to study designs. So here's, using paper to come up with how do I really want to lay this out before I even consider cutting a piece of glass. Got an idea of color direction. Print out on the computer some pieces of paper, align those, and then just start building. The spiral is guiding this piece, but then all of the pieces, all of the work outside the spiral is happening as I'm assembling it. Just the direction of the rings of the French vanilla. There's a good shot of the samples in there too, the color samples. bringing in some paisley. Maybe it's a paisley. Bringing in some curves for that, and then following the curves, letting the curve dictate or help to dictate the direction of the piece. And around the inside of the paisleys, having the pieces pointing towards the center brings in a real flow of pattern across the piece. Again, extreme curves and following the curves. Here, deciding as I lay the curves out, then deciding, do I want to follow that curve? Do I want to follow this curve? How do I want to, what do I think is going to be, is the most interesting way to fill these? Thinking about that and having the vessel talk back to me, say, hey, I think you should go over there. I think you could go over here. It's a really exciting activity. And finally, I think this is the last one. One more.
So, Jim, as you lay the fused glass pieces into the recessed kiln shelf, are you actually gluing them down or are they secure enough just being placed?
Very good question. On number one, I was thinking, oh, glue is a cheating. Not anymore. Because after you make a few rows and they all fall down, you say some words that you should just don't want to say. So what I'll do is I'll just put some drops of glue
Mm-hmm.
so they don't fall over. So like every 5 or 6 rows, when I say this won't be fun if they all fall over, I'll just lay a little bead of glass of clear glue.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see on this one the semicircles that starts with the amber. You can kind of see that there's glue under there, but it just burns off. Something to hold a piece, and the ring in the middle, the green ring, that's glued down so that so it doesn't move.
Because your patterns are
Oh,
also very crisp from its initial stage as a flat piece into its final form. And I know you spoke about really watching the kiln very closely every 10 minutes during the firing process. Is that what is really ensuring that the pattern stays crisp and doesn't, a lot of times you'll see these types of patterns spread a bit as they get into their slumped form, and yours is really retaining the true design that it has in the flat shape.
yeah, the crispness is done in the full fuse in the
Okay.
very first once, and what you're seeing on the outside here is the you're seeing on the outside of the vessel is the shelf side of the fuse plank. So those are going to be very tight. They don't move. The other side, it will flow. And so you'll see in some of the pieces, I could back up, but you'll see in like this piece, you'll see how they flow on the inside, but on the outside, they're crisp. Now they do flow, and you're going to get gap. I have gaps, and I embrace the gaps that you'll see, like right here. There's some gaps, but it all flows and fills together, and uh, they're nice things to have.
Yeah.
Leaving the gaps there gives you some interesting flow. Yeah. So the Christmas you're seeing is from the bottom side of the shell. So the exciting thing was that Corning called me in December of 24 and asked me if I would like to teach. And I go, wow, yes, thank you. That was quite an honor to get that call. So I had gone down to Corning in August to take a class with Steve Klein and to get familiar with the facility at Corning. which is amazing. Really fell in love with all the people and the facility. And then just came back last week, went there for the blizzard. And it did snow. And surprisingly, all 9 students, one from Greece, made it there on time. I was going like, what? Surely there's going to be somebody that doesn't make it, but they all made it. It was just a great week. Great week indeed. And they've invited me to come back in June of 27. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was such a wonderful presentation and really gave a wonderful insight to everyone. I can see just from all of the comments in the chat that everyone was really overwhelmed with both the beauty and intricacy of your work. We do have a lot of questions, and so I'm going to start going through them here. Let me get back up to the top. Wow, we have quite a few. Let's see here. All right. For your inserts, are they stacks of three 3mm pieces of clear glass, referring to the piece with the red inserts? I'm not sure what that one is.
Red inserts. So it varies. It'll be 1, 2, or 3 layers of glass, flat pieces. See if I can find the red one. Yeah. So here you can see there's 2 different colors of bullseye glass. This would be, whoops, sorry. But you can see here is one layer, a layer of color sandwiched between 2 pieces of tecta, 2 pieces of color, and a piece of tecta in between, 3 pieces of color. So you got the 369 millimeter depth going here. And then this is another amber, a little darker. And then again, 1, 2, and 3 layers of that color. I don't, that's not red, but I think that's
Right.
there.
Yeah.
This red here, these are pieces of billet that I cut on a tile saw, and then surrounded by dense white, which gives that great reaction with the French vanilla.
And you mentioned a website for photography earlier in the talk. Do you?
Yeah, it's Steve Immerman. If you go to Steve Immerman, just Google Steve Immerman.
Okay.
Great guy, so helpful. And he has a whole section of tutorials, and one of them of his tutorials talks about photography, which I found very helpful. Yeah, Steve is a guy that will never put the shelf side down on his final slump. He has to have it out. The precision of a surgeon. Yeah, you can really see it here. You can see on the inside how things have flowed a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
than on the outside, the shelf side.
And a really precise question here. Are you concerned about the French vanilla chips being up or down?
I'm not sure what that means. Up or down.
Um,
They're all 9 millimeters. They're all 9 millimeters high, and they're on edge,
okay.
standing on edge. So I'm not sure what up or down means.
I
Maybe
think they might be referring to which side you have up versus down, with French vanilla being a reactive color. But we can talk a little bit more
sure.
about that after the recording is
Yeah,
finished, and we
great.
have our group talk afterwards. Let's see. You mentioned a little bit the scale, but just give us an idea of the size range. I think you said up to about 22 inches diameter or something in there.
Yeah, the large pieces from the distilled period, those are in a stainless steel sink mold, so they're like 16 to 18 inches in the diameter and probably 3 or 4 inches tall. The Ancient Ring series is 6 inches tall, 10 inches in diameter.
Okay. And when is your next show? What do you have upcoming in terms of teaching gigs? What else can you tell us about
The
next?
next teaching gig is at Corning in June of 27.
Okay. And do you have any exhibitions coming up or any currently going on that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm in the I'm always available at Philbaum Gallery. They have my work. Uh, Currently, I'm at an exhibition called Fuse at Foster White Gallery in Seattle. And I have work at Third Degree Glass in St. Louis. I had my first St. Louis solo exhibition there last year, and they asked me to put my work in their gallery as well. So I'm there. No other exhibitions that I have on the agenda.
Mhm.
This last year has been really trying to figure out the Corning thing. So in addition to making glass, how do I make this good for the students that are coming to Corning? I've really been focusing on that.
Yeah. A question about the different stages. You showed us the three molds that you use to slump the piece and take it through the process. Do you
Mhm.
cold work the pieces between full fuse and slump since you're putting the kiln side to the outside?
Yeah. So I'll just take a handy pad and rub the edges so that it slumps nicely in the mold. But,
Okay.
but and sandblasting it. So after I get the blank, yeah. So I have the blank, I'll put that in the sandblaster to put a matte finish on it, which
Hmm.
then gets sealed in the three slumps that follow. I just like that finish.
And what do you like to use for your sealant?
For my sealant,
Yeah, after the work is
I,
sandblasted.
I don't
Oh, you don't.
because no, I don't because the slumping seals it.
Oh, so you
So
don't go through a final sandblast after it is complete.
no, I sandblast it after the blank, and then the three slumps at 1175 handle sealing it.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, we do have more questions, but I'd like to just make some final announcements and then we can stop the recording. And everyone that wants to stay on, um, we can have a little group talk after the recording ends and you can ask all of your questions and be sure that they're answered. I do want to mention again that if you are new to AACG's programming, I encourage you to check out aacgglass.org. We have Zoom programs every Friday, and the first Friday is open to the public, but all of the other Zooms are exclusively for our members. So if you'd like to join, you can participate in those Zooms as well. And even if you're not around when the Zooms are happening, you can still access them through our private member portal. So we have hundreds of videos in our portal that you can access anytime. If you are in the Northern California area, we also have new in-person events for AACG members. So whether you're a current member or someone that is interested in joining AACG, be aware that we not only have virtual programming, but really some wonderful in-person events within the Northern California region that you can take part in. And last, I just want to mention our March Fired Up program, which is coming up soon. And that is going to be part of our new virtual series called Collector's Edge. So if you're interested in collecting or just learning more about the art market and the various dynamics, it's going to be a panel discussion that I think everyone, whether you're an artist or a collector or enthusiast, is going to find really insightful. So thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you so much, Jim, for an incredible program. Your work is phenomenal, and I think it's clear from the comments in the chat that all of us really admire the level of detail and dedication that you put into creating the work, and it's fabulous to see the success that you're having. If everyone would like to stay on, you're welcome to ask more questions after I stop the recording. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.